Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Muller, and today we are looking at the cover of my new novel, Wizard Assassin, currently available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, and I thought it would be interesting to once again take a look at the cover and see how I put it together. Here we can see the finished and completed cover, so what we're going to do now is turn off all the layers, and then I will walk you through the layers one by one to let you know how I put the cover together. So as you can see, I've switched off the visibility on all the layers. So we are going to look at the layers one by one and see how I put the cover together. The first is a black backfill layer, which I use honestly just because things are easier to see against it than a white background. It makes it easier to see where elements are. The next is this castle courtyard image, which I generated in Daz 3D using some Daz assets. And as you can see, I did a Gaussian blur on that background. I believe it was for 5 pixels to create the fake illusion of it being further in the back than it really is. Next up is a color lookup layer that helps to create the illusion that it's night. Next up is the Riva backlight layer, which I usually put behind the figure on the cover to make it look more visible. This is a fractal pattern in blue that has been blurred quite a bit, and the opacity has been dialed down to only 20%, which helps create sort of a vaguely magical look for the background. This is a Sparks and Ember overlay, and you can see it's originally, see if I can turn that off there, that's originally sort of yellow-orange, which doesn't work with this color scheme of the cover, which is in fact blue and green, but I turned that on black and white so it would match in a little bit, which you'll see why. Because I added this overlay layer of color, set it to opacity at 60% to add additional blue color to the background to help tie it together for the overall color scheme of the cover. Next up is shadow focus layer, which I create by doing a fill layer with the black, using the marquee tool to cut out a circle in the center of it, and then Gaussian blur it and set the opacity to 35, which helps bring the focus into the character on the center of the image in a little bit. Next up is a title marquee, which as you can see there has, that's where the title will be, and that helps darken the background and makes the title easier to see. And then we see the first of the figures, actually the only figure. I use a couple different layers for the figure. And this is again generated in Daz 3D using various 3D assets I have purchased over the years. And as you can see initially, this does not mix very well with the color scheme of the cover, because the lack of natural lighting on her face makes it seem like she is very out of place there. But don't worry, we'll fix that in future layers. Next up is the additional layer, and what I use for this is a copy of the first layer and then a clipping mask to adjust the color, which you can see there, and that's set to only an opacity of 63%. And then I use a layer mask on this layer and then erase some of it to help create the illusion of, and we can probably zoom in and see this a little bit better here, to create the illusion of light and shadow on the face. Because as we zoom in on the face, you see if I turn off this layer and clipping mask, we lose that cool illusion of blue light and shadow on her face. But if we turn that back on, that works better, and then we can see it is fitting in much better overall with the overall look and feel of the cover. So after that, we have, what is it, the fireball she's holding. That's actually another stock image I bought of a blue star, and I frequently use that for a fireball with a motion blur to give the illusion of movement. Next up is a fire over layer that I've adjusted the color with, so it looks like she's holding a ball of blue fire. After that is a spot flare that makes it look like the ball of fire is glowing. It helps create the illusion and reinforce the illusion of light and shadow on her face. Next up is the author name marquee, which is like the title name and lets the author name pop a little bit better against the background image. So now we're up far enough along to come to the text layers where we can see, let me zoom in a bit so we can see this a bit better. We can see the first of the author names there, and that is achieved by, I use just a text layer and then the overlay here, which is a fire layer that has been adjusted. Because as I've done more cover design, I've gotten to be not a fan of unadorned text like this. It just looks visually boring. It doesn't pop. There's nothing to hold the interest of the eye. Whereas what I found is a good way there's a couple different ways you can use to make text more interesting, and Photoshop does have a lot of what they call like beveling and emboss tools and so forth. But I found it works best if you can find an interesting texture to use as an overlay and then adjust the color to what you want. And this is a fire overlay, very similar to the fireball that the figure is holding, but it's just been tweaked and filled with, so it's green, which is a good match for the blue background of this cover. So if we zoom out a little bit, we can see that we add the rest of the author name there, and that likewise has the same overlay. And then we'll move up here a bit to the top of the image, and we'll add assassin and then wizard. And so if we zoom out, we can see we are almost done. That is a good looking cover that will hopefully help sell many books. And the only thing left to do is to add the number of the series, and this is the 5th book of the 9 I'm playing in this series. So it is Half-Elven Thief number 5, Wizard Assassin. So that is how I put the cover together. I hope you found that interesting. And if you did find it interesting and this looks like a book you would like to read, check out the link to it on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, which you will find in the description of this video. Thanks, and have a good rest of the day.